This mental trick breaks laziness forever. Everyone wants to be disciplined. Everyone says they want to be productive, but the truth is most people are addicted to comfort. And comfort is the breeding ground for laziness. Laziness doesn't start with weakness, it starts with permission. You give yourself the silent green light to scroll, to delay, to do it later. And just like that, another hour is gone, another day slips through your fingers. But here's the truth. Laziness isn't a lack of effort, it's a lack of clarity. When your mind isn't locked onto something meaningful, urgent, or personal, it drifts. The enemy isn't just inaction, it's directionless action. Busyness without purpose. Here's the mental trick that flips the switch: identity before action. Don't start with what you need to do. Start with who you are when you do it. Your brain obeys your identity more than your to-do list. You don't get up early because you should. You get up because you see yourself as a disciplined man who doesn't negotiate with weakness. That's the trick. You burn the bridge back to your old identity. Say it out loud. I am not the kind of man who waits. I'm not the kind who breaks promises to himself. Not affirmations, declarations, commands to the subconscious. Because once your identity shifts, action becomes automatic. Not easy, but automatic. Think about it. When you identify as a smoker, quitting feels like a war against yourself. But when you say, I don't smoke, there's no negotiation. That's not you anymore. Laziness works the same way. The more you argue with it, the more power you give it. Cut the negotiation. Decide who you are. The mind craves alignment. If your identity says one thing, but your habits say another, you'll feel friction. But that friction isn't failure, that's fuel. It means your standards are rising. Use that. Anchor your actions to the man you've decided to become. And here's where it gets deeper. Laziness is often a symptom of fear. Fear of starting, fear of failing, fear of not being good enough. But fear hides behind laziness like a mask. Rip it off, name it, stare it down. Because once you expose the fear, the laziness loses its power. Most people wait for motivation. That's the trap. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Discipline isn't about feeling ready, it's about feeling responsible. You don't owe it to your emotions. You owe it to your future. So next time you feel the pull of laziness, don't fight the feeling. Replace the pattern. Ask yourself, what would the disciplined version of me do right now? Then do exactly that. No delay, no drama, no debate. You become who you repeatedly decide to be. Moment by moment, choice by choice, and laziness dies when identity lives. Now here's the catch. Your brain will resist at first. It'll throw every excuse in the book. It'll whisper things like, just 5 more minutes, or you've earned a break. But that's not your voice, that's the voice of your past. The version of you that stayed average. The version that feared change. Your job now is to override that voice. Not with motivation, with command. You don't need more time. You don't need more hacks. What you need is a non-negotiable standard. A line you draw in the sand that says, this is how I operate now. Because once you do that, discipline becomes your default, not your struggle. This is where most people fall. They try to manage laziness with emotion. But emotion is fluid. It rises and falls. Discipline is built on structure, not moods. That's why this mental shift works. It moves you out of reactive mode and into identity mode. You're not reacting to how you feel. You're responding to who you are. And that's where the game changes. You see, your brain is always listening. Every excuse, every delay, every skip session it remembers. It builds a record of what you tolerate, and what you tolerate becomes your baseline. So, if you let yourself slide today, you just taught your mind that slipping is okay. But if you stand firm, even once, even when it's hard, you start rewriting the code. That's what breaks laziness, not some morning routine or productivity app. It's the daily confrontation with the weaker version of yourself, and the refusal to let that version win. Every moment you act in alignment with the man you want to become, you reinforce that identity. And each time you do, the lazy version of you gets smaller, quieter, less believable. And then something clicks. Laziness stops feeling like a burden you need to escape. It becomes irrelevant. Why? Because you no longer see yourself as someone who deals with laziness. You're the one who kills it before it even shows up. From here, everything changes. Your mornings become weapons. Your focus sharpens. Your energy shifts. Because when identity locks in, action follows naturally. You stop chasing motivation and start building momentum. And once momentum hits, it's no longer about effort. It's about flow. You show up, you execute. You move forward not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. But this only works if you make it real. You can't just think it, you have to embody it. Say it, live it, feel the resistance and move anyway. Not once, not when it's convenient, but every damn time. Because that's how men are built, in the fire of repetition. You want to be uncheckable. Then you train like you mean it, not with hype, not with noise, with silence, with consistency, with that relentless internal voice that says, get up, get it done. Again, this isn't about hustling 24/7. It's not about glorifying burnout. It's about building a foundation so solid that laziness doesn't even have a place to land. It bounces off. It doesn't stick, because your standards are too high and your identity is too locked in. Understand this: your future inbuilt in one breakthrough. It's built in the 1,000 invisible moments where you choose the hard thing over the easy way out, where you choose to keep your word when no one's watching. That's where real strength is forged. Not in the highlight reel, in the shadows, in the grind, in the discipline no one claps for. So, if you're waiting for a sign to change, stop waiting. That moment already came. It's now. It's always now. Because every second you delay is a second stolen by the old you. The passive you, the you that tolerates less than greatness. Here's the reality. Laziness can survive in the presence of a man who lives by principle. Not feeling, not hype, principle, a code. A standard that says, this is who I am, this is what I do, no matter what. And the more you live by that code, the more your mind bends to it. You'll notice something strange happening. The excuses get quieter. The resistance fades faster. The I'll do it later voice starts to sound ridiculous. Why? Because it doesn't belong to you anymore. That's the point where laziness dies, not with effort, but with identity. With a decision so strong, it burns the bridge back to who you used to be. And once that bridge is gone, you command it to leave, and it listens, because now you operate from conviction, not convenience. You're no longer the man who hopes things get better. You're the man who makes them better, not because it's glamorous, not because it's easy, but because it's required. Because you refuse to betray your potential any longer, and that shift changes everything. You stop chasing quick wins and start stacking real ones. You stop fantasizing about the future and start building it brick by brick. You stop letting the softness of your environment define the sharpness of your discipline. This is what separates you: the willingness to act when no one is clapping, the resolve to stay locked in when your body screams for rest, the quiet confidence that comes from honoring your word to yourself when it would have been easier to break it. Most men break when it gets hard. You rise. Because you understand, pressure isn't a problem, it's a privilege. It means the universe is testing you, asking you, are you who you say you are? Or is it all just noise? And in those moments, you don't flinch. You respond, you tighten your grip, you keep moving. Not because the path is clear, but because you made a vow to never go back. This isn't motivation, this is mental armor. And every rep, every early morning, every small act of discipline is another plate in that armor. It doesn't make you perfect, it makes you prepared. For the setbacks, for the doubt, for the days when your energy is gone but your mission isn't finished. You don't collapse, you recenter. You don't negotiate, you execute. You don't wait to feel ready, you move until you are. Because at the end of the day, the man who lives by action will always outperform the man who lives in his head. That's the secret. That's the trick. That's how you kill laziness not once, but forever. And when you do, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, you're not just consistent, you're inevitable. You've stripped away the weakness disguised as comfort. You've trained your mind to obey your mission, not your mood. And when a man lives like that, there's nothing soft about him. There's nothing passive. He becomes a force, not loud, not flashy, just disciplined, steady, relentless, the kind of man people notice not because he talks about what he's going to do, but because he's too busy doing it. And here's where most people can't follow you. They still need to be convinced. You don't. You've made your decision. You've planted your flag. This isn't a phase. It's not a trend. It's the new normal. And because you've chosen identity over impulse, you don't fall off when life gets chaotic. You lock in. Your focus becomes your freedom. Your routine becomes your weapon, and your refusal to compromise on your standards, your time, your word becomes your edge. Understand this. The moment you stop letting feelings dictate your direction is the moment you become a leader not just of others, but of yourself. And that's where all power begins. Self-leadership. That invisible backbone most men never build because it's forged in solitude, in silence, in sacrifice. And while the rest of the world scrambles for hacks and shortcuts, you build habits. You create systems. You operate like a professional in a world full of amateurs. Because you've seen what laziness really is. It's not just a lack of motion, it's a betrayal of potential. And that's something you simply won't tolerate anymore. Not today, not ever again. So, when the alarm hits, you rise. When resistance whispers, you act. When comfort tempts you to fall back, you move forward. You don't entertain the old identity. You've buried him. You're not revisiting the grave. From here on out, your decisions serve your future, not your feelings. Every step you take sharpens your edge. Every minute you own rewrites your wiring. You are no longer building a life around ease. You're building a legacy around discipline. And that legacy starts with the choices no one sees. The 5 a.m. wake-ups when no one's watching. The reps you push through after your body begs you to stop. The nights you stay locked in while everyone else numbs out. These are the bricks, and brick by brick, you build something unshakable. Not just success, not just goals, but respect for yourself. Because that's the truth nobody talks about. Laziness isn't just a productivity issue, it's a respect issue. When you skip the work, when you break your own promises, when you let yourself off the hook, you chip away at your own self-respect. And the more you chip away, the harder it gets to believe in yourself when it matters. But when you do the opposite, when you show up again and again, even when it's hard, you start stacking proof. Real, undeniable proof that says, I'm not soft, I'm not lost, I'm in control. That proof. It rewires your brain. Suddenly, confidence in something you tried to fake. It's something you own. You walk different. Think different. Move different. Not because you're pretending, but because you earned it. And that energy, it's contagious. People feel it. They won't always understand it. Some will be intimidated. Some will be inspired. But no one will be able to ignore it, because discipline speaks louder than words. It shows in your posture, in your habits, in the results you keep producing, while everyone else is still making excuses. You become rare, and rare always stands out. But understand this, the path doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. Laziness still knocks. Distractions still call. But now, you've got armor, you've got weapons. You've got a standard that burns hotter than any excuse. So, you don't need to fight harder. You just need to stay sharper. Stay locked in. Stay ruthless about what you allow, because once you taste what it's like to live above the pool of laziness, once you feel that clarity, that strength, that fire, there's no going back. And from this point forward, you carry yourself like a man with purpose. Not just a man who gets things done, but a man who knows why he does them. That's the difference between the disciplined and the drifters. One moves with intention, the other floats, hoping something will change. But nothing changes until you change. From this point forward, you protect your time like it's gold because it is. You guard your focus like it's sacred because it is. You stop allowing laziness, doubt, or comfort to have a seat at your table. They don't get a vote anymore. They don't belong in the life you're building. Your energy shifts, your circle tightens, your priorities sharpen. What used to feel like effort now feels like alignment, waking up early, saying no to distractions, doing the hard thing first. It doesn't drain you, it defines you. And people will notice. They'll ask what changed. They'll ask how you stay so consistent. But they won't understand that it wasn't a hack. It wasn't a book or a video. It was one brutal decision. You stopped living on autopilot and took control of the wheel. Because that's all it takes, one clear, hard line in your mind. This is who I am now. And I don't go backwards. And when you live like that, every part of your life upgrades. Your work becomes sharper. Your body follows your standards. Your relationships reflect your energy. You're no longer chasing, you're leading. Not just others. Yourself. The world doesn't hand power to the lazy. It gives it to the man who proves he can handle it. And you've proven it not with noise, but with action. Not with promises, but with proof. Daily, quiet, unstoppable proof. And now, everything that once held you back, laziness, doubt, hesitation, becomes fuel. You don't just beat them, you use them. You turn resistance into results. Delay into drive, discomfort into dominance, because from this point forward, you move like a man who already won the war inside. And everything else is just strategy. You've handled the hardest part, mastering the internal game. Now, external challenges, they're just puzzles, not threats. Not chaos, just tasks. One by one. Executed with precision. No drama, no emotion, just forward movement. You see, most men spend their lives reacting. You've shifted into creation. You don't wait for direction, you set direction. You don't wait for opportunity, you create it. And when pressure hits, you don't collapse. You center, you lean in, you remember. This is what you trained for. The gym, the silence, the cold mornings, the late nights. They weren't punishment, they were preparation. While the world numbed out, you sharpened up. While others scrolled, you built. While they distracted themselves, you became dangerous. And now the game bends to you. Not because it's easy, but because you're built for it. That's the edge. Not being faster. Not being smarter. Just being relentless. When others hesitate, you decide. When they stall, you strike. When they fold, you finish. And the beauty of it all, it's not genetics. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's just a simple, brutal truth. You did what most won't. And that's why you'll have what most never will. But you don't brag. You don't broadcast. You don't chase applause. You move in silence because the results speak loud enough. They always do. So now you wake up with clarity. You work with intention. You rest with purpose. You live with force. And every step forward isn't just progress. It's a statement. Laziness died the moment I decided to become a weapon. And every single day that follows is another sharpened edge. Another strike against the man you used to be. Another day you refuse to retreat into comfort. You've killed the version of you that settled, that delayed, that negotiated with weakness. What's left now is precision, focus, fire. The fire doesn't fade, it evolves. It stops burning for validation. It burns for mastery. Mastery of your body, your craft, your mind. You no longer just show up to compete, you show up to dominate. Quietly, consistently, completely. And the world starts to adjust to you. Not because you forced it, but because you became undeniable. When a man moves with this level of intent, people listen differently. Doors open faster. Resistance softens. Not because the world got easier, but because you got stronger. But here's the part most men miss: this doesn't end. This level, this rhythm, It doesn't have a finish line. There's no moment where you're done. Discipline isn't something you reach, it's something you become. And once you become it, you carry it into everything: work, relationships, legacy. That's why this mental shift breaks laziness forever, because it replaces it with identity. A man who is disciplined doesn't need motivation. A man who is focused doesn't need hacks. A man who is his word moves without hesitation. And now, so do you, not because someone told you to, but because you decided to never betray yourself again. Because the life you want, the respect you crave, the legacy you're chasing, it only answers to one thing: relentless, disciplined action, and you've already chosen it. So now, every time the old voice comes back, whispers of later, or rest, or what's the point, you don't argue, you don't flinch, you don't even look back. You just keep moving forward, because from this point on, forward is the only direction that exists. No rewind, no detours, no comfort zones. Just relentless forward motion fueled by clarity, discipline, and purpose. You don't need to feel ready, you already becoming the kind of man who acts before readiness ever shows up. Every step now affirms the new standard. Every hour you own compounds into momentum, and momentum is lethal. It silences doubt, crushes hesitation, and turns ordinary routines into elite execution. You're no longer interested in potential, you're interested in proof. Measurable, repeatable, undeniable proof that you are exactly who you say you are. Because potential is for dreamers, proof is for men who move. And while others will talk about balance, rest, waiting for the right time, you've already realized balance without direction is just drift. Rest without purpose is decay. Waiting is the death of greatness. There is no right time, there is only now, and now is brutal, unforgiving, and perfect. That's what you live in now. Reality, not fantasy. Not someday, but this day, this moment, this choice. And in this choice, you build the habits that build the life. You stack discipline until it becomes instinct, until the hard things feel normal, until the grind becomes sacred. This is the quiet transformation. No one sees the exact second when it happens, but suddenly you've crossed a line. You're not trying to be disciplined, you are. You're not hoping to stay focused, you live focused. You don't wish for progress, you command it. You've burned the excuses, you've buried the weakness. And now, every breath, every step, every rep is a message to the world and to yourself. I do not go back. I do not slow down. I do not break. Because when discipline becomes identity, the game ends. And from this point on, you are the game. Not a player, not a spectator, the standard itself. You no longer chase excellence, you set it. In your habits, in your focus. In the way you walk into a room with quiet certainty, because you've already done the work that others are still avoiding. You don't need to shout. The results do it for you. This is the life most won't choose because it demands too much. It demands honesty. It demands solitude. It demands that you cut off everything and everyone that doesn't align. Not in anger, not in ego, but in discipline. Because once you've seen what's possible, the average life is no longer acceptable. You're building something few ever will, a reputation with yourself. That when you say you'll do it, it gets done. That when you set a target, you hit it. That when life pushes, you don't fold, you push harder. This is what separates the man who talks about discipline from the man who lives it. One looks for inspiration, the other looks in the mirror and acts anyway. And it's in that action repeated endlessly, without fanfare, that transformation becomes permanent. Because it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. You stop trying to sprint to greatness. You started marching slow, deliberate, unstoppable, one foot in front of the other. Every day, no matter what, there's no shortcut here. Just 1,000 small victories that add up to a man no one can shake. And from this point on, you don't move emotionally, you move strategically. You don't react to life, you impose your vision on it. And when the world tests you as it always will, you don't need to prepare. You already are. The foundation is set. The identity is locked. The mission is clear. And so, day after day, with no need for applause or permission, you keep showing up, you keep sharpening the blade. Because you understand now, laziness wasn't the problem, weak identity was, and that's no longer who you are. And so the work continues not because you have to, but because there's no other way to live now. You've tasted what it feels like to be fully aligned, to act without hesitation, to build without distraction. And once you've lived in that frequency, anything less feels like self-betrayal. You're not here to dabble, you're here to dominate, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. Every morning is war, but you're no longer afraid of the battle. You welcome it, because each battle sharpens you. Every moment of resistance is just another opportunity to rise above the version of you that used to settle. And that man is dead. You're not here to do what's expected. You're not here to match the energy of the room. You're here to lead it, set the pace, set the tone, show what it looks like to carry weight without folding, to face pressure without panic, to hold the line when it would be easier to run. This is your edge. You no longer need conditions to be perfect. You operate through chaos. You move through resistance. While others need ideal settings to begin, you create momentum in the storm. Because from this point on, it's not about intensity, it's about identity. And identity doesn't skip days. Identity doesn't ask how you feel. Identity doesn't compromise. This is who you are now. When the alarm goes off, you move. When doubt creeps in, you act. When discomfort rises, you lean in harder, because comfort isn't your reward anymore, discipline is. You live for that feeling at the end of the day when the work is done, and you know without applause, without recognition, that you honored your standard, that you're still undefeated in the war against your old self, and tomorrow,